Let's fucking go.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Deshaun and today I'm here to review Captain America Brave New World. Now there is a lot of heat around this movie. This movie had heat around it before it was released. It had heat around it when, because you gotta understand, this movie has had some type form of heat, smoke, whatever you want to say around it since Endgame, if you want to go way back then, when Captain America, Steve Rogers chose Sam Wilson to be Captain America. Now there's been a shit ton of opinions on Sam Wilson being chosen to be Captain America. Now, there's obviously some people who just wanted Bucky to be Captain America. They just wanted Bucky to be Captain America. They just felt like that's where that should have went. And those people, I disagree with you, but you know what? But that's a conversation we can have. I could have that conversation with any nerd, any comic book guy about whether Bucky or Sam should have been Captain America, as long as we're talking about this as a story/character thing. Now, I disagree with you, and I'm gonna get into some of those things later in the review, but we can have that conversation. But there is obviously, and I'm not fucking an idiot, but I have to acknowledge it, there is obviously a little bit of a air of the times right now whenever a character of color is kind of given roles like this or casting roles like this or race swapping or sex swapping. Like, these kind of things are very sensitive right today. There's obviously going to be a large portion, a minority who are going to have issues with the fact that a black man being Captain America. Like, that's already going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing. But I don't think it was as loud as some people may make it out to be. But it is in the air. We can't I'm not a moron. I'm not an idiot. I'm going to plug my ears and pretend like that's not in the air. It will always be in the air whenever you're talking about characters, a minority character like this. But this movie has had a lot of smoke going on behind the scenes. We've all heard about the rumors of the insane amount of reshoots and the restructuring and all these different things. Now, those rumors have been sort of kind of proven to be false, that there was changes to the script. There were changes that happened, but there wasn't this insane ridiculous reshoots. In fact, there was rumors that the movie cost upwards to $350 million production budget. And as it turns out, it was just about a $180 million production budget, which is pretty much right in the ballpark of, actually, yeah, it's only a little bit more than Black Widow at 160 or something. So it's still almost $200 million of a budget, but it's not as crazy as some of the rumors were making it out to be. This movie got to make something in the ballpark of $450 million to break even, which is on its way to doing, because I think it made 180 to 89 this weekend. So it made its production budget back, but it's got to make at least $400-something million. We'll see if it gets there. But all that being said, the smoke around the movie, what do I think about the movie? There's a very divisive. Now, this is an interesting movie. There is a phrase that's often used in certain situations, mostly around sports, which is the sum is better than the parts. So the sum is better than the parts. Well, this movie is more the parts are better than the sum, if that makes any sense. Because I've often on this channel talked many times about the thing that always made the MCU work, and the reason why the MCU was able to get away with movies like Thor Dark World, Iron Man 2, and certain other movies like that, is the main protagonists' work. And if the main protagonists work, particularly the main protagonist and the antagonist, if you get the antagonist to work too, that'd be cool. But as long as the main antagonist/main protagonist works, it can carry a movie and kind of hide a lot of its flaws. I've often said the reason I still think movies like Iron Man 2 and the original Thor and Thor: The Dark World, while they're not the best top tier of the MCU, in fact, they're pretty much just decent movies. Those movies are carried by great performances from the main cast. The original Thor has holes all over the place, but Loki and Thor are so good in it that they carry the movie. Same thing with Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 is a mess, one of the worst villains of all time in any comic book thing ever. But Tony Stark and Don Cheadle, to his credit, and Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer are so entertaining in it, and the final fight is so badass that I end up walking away not really paying too much attention to the litany of plot holes and all the other issues with the movie, because I still was entertained by Tony Stark, Don Cheadle, Sam Rockwell, and the final battle was badass. So I'm like, okay, you know what? There's a lot of holes here. And there's a lot of movies like that. There's a lot of films that I've watched over the years where I'm like, you know what? And for an example of something that's the opposite, as I've talked many times before, I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Dune movie. I thought that movie was shot so well, it looked so well. Actually, Dune's not a good example. Tenet's a good example of a movie where I didn't find any of the actual characters in the movie interesting, but everything around the movie, the story, the plot, all that stuff was cool. But I didn't care about these characters, so it hindered my enjoyment. This movie, Brave New World, is the opposite. I enjoyed pretty much almost all of the main cast, but the actual story and the plot is just riddled with holes. And I'm not going to get into this here. The movie did just come out, so it's going to be a spoiler-free review. So I'm not going to get too much into it. I'm probably going to make a spoiler review to get more into it, like maybe later this week. But without getting into any spoilers, the story is somehow, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a simple plot, but there are just beats missing to make it work. I'm going to start off with the negatives, because I do think that the positives actually outweigh the negatives, but I am going to start with the negatives because there is quite a few. First of all, the CGI is touch and go. Two things that are touch and go, which is so weird. It's just inconsistent, because none of these things are outright bad. It's just so inconsistent, which is the CGI and the fight choreography. Like, there are times where it feels like they have two different fight choreographers. It particularly stands out when Sam is doing the hand-to-hand combat stuff. You know, the staple of a Captain America movie for often is its up-close, practical effect, hand-to-hand combat stuff. And sometimes it looks good and sometimes it doesn't. And the crazy thing about this movie is the sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't can often be all in the same scene. In particular, that opening action sequence that was supposed to be this mind-blowing thing, which is crazy because in Falcon and the Winter Soldier they also had an opening action sequence which was this mind-blowing awesome thing. Granted, it might have benefited from it being more of an aerial thing, which I'll get into later, but every single scene where Sam was on the ground doing something, there would be these awesome shield shit. So he'll do something badass with the shield, only to be followed up by just this clunky, uninspired hand-to-hand combat sequences, which I'm just like, damn, you guys get, it feels like two different people came in to make those scenes. Now that you might could say was like maybe them going back and fucking with the action sequence or something. I'm not sure, but it did always feel like there was two different people, like two different fight choreographers just doing their own thing, and it just didn't always work. So that's one thing. And the CGI is touch and go. Sometimes Sam looks amazing, but sometimes it doesn't look right at all. It kind of goes back and forth between the two. Like between looking amazing and not looking right at all. Now granted, the movie actually has not too much in comparison to other MCU films, there is actually a minimum of CGI, to be fair. There's a lot of more grounded, people in their suits. Like, Sam's not even in his suit all the time in the movie. There's a lot more grounded shit happening, so there's not a ton of CGI being used. But when it is used, it is like they had to allocate the budget to further shit. So that's a touch and go thing. Also, it's another MCU movie that does the same thing. I have said on my channel also, I think the biggest thing that has plagued phases 4 and 5 is that so many of these movies have great concepts, have great ingredients. Like, they're just and they're putting all these ingredients in this bowl. They're gonna make a fucking stew or something, and it's like they just undercook it. They never give any of these great ideas enough time to bake. You know what I mean? And honestly, in many ways, Captain America Brave New World would have actually served better as a long-form show. Now, I get it. You really want to get Sam Wilson out there as the Captain America. You want him to... That's why I didn't have a problem with it. You want him to push on to become the Captain America moving forward in the MCU, who's going to be the leader of the Avengers. We kind of already heard about that. So we kind of want to get this out and like put it in people's minds. This is Captain America. He will be the leader of the next Avengers. This is Sam Wilson. But the problem is the story isn't given enough time to really bake, and it may have been better served as a show. Which actually leads me to another one of the bigger problems in the film, which is the emotional impact of this entire movie really hinges on how much you like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you didn't like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you're not gonna like this. Like, that's just kind of plain and simple. Like, but the thing about it though is, I couldn't imagine someone who loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like genuinely loved it, had a great time with it, going into this movie and not enjoying it, because it builds on what Falcon and the Winter Soldier does, if not just rehashes it, and some ways better and some ways not. But the point is, a lot of your emotional attachment to these characters like Joaquin and God damn it, not Carl. Why do I remember the actor's name, but not the actual Isaiah Bradley? Like, your connection to these characters and Sam Wilson really hinge on how much you enjoyed Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because like me, like, there are sequences with goddamn it, Isaiah Bradley, particularly you know, this was in the trailer when the whole thing goes down and Isaiah's in prison. There's sequences of him in prison and whatnot, that particularly one with him and Sam Wilson talking, that's emotional as shit. And it doesn't mean much to you if out of context, because they never go into like the backstory of Isaiah Bradley. They never get into the stuff they got into Falcon and the Winter Soldier directly. But when you bring the context of Falcon and the Winter Soldier and knowing what he went through and knowing the shit that happened to him and knowing how he felt about being in this exact situation, it makes that scene with him and Sam Wilson infinitely more emotional and infinitely better. The problem, same thing with Joaquin, the problem is if you didn't see Falcon and the Winter Soldier or you didn't like it, then it doesn't mean anything, which kind of is a problem, which is kind of a problem with Falcon and the Winter Soldier in this anyways, is, you know, I always say that, like, one of the reasons the Penguin is going to do, like, the Penguin isn't going to, like, you're not going to lose anything if you didn't watch the Penguin when Batman 2 comes out, because the Batman 2 is obviously around Bruce Wayne Batman. So it doesn't really matter if you didn't watch the Penguin or not. Like, there's not going to be anything that's like, you gotta go watch the Penguin. Whereas this is the lead character who accepted his role, and so much of this movie is based off of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it's like, if you didn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you're missing so much context, which is a big problem. But that being said, Sam Wilson is great. And he's even more great in this role. He just comes off so earnest. He comes off, but he has because Captain America Steve would come off sometimes just too perfect, too polished. Like, he would just say the right thing all the time. He would do the right thing, the smile. Sam Wilson, he has just enough, like, dirt to him. But I love the ad-libs that Anthony Mackie has when he'll just be like, man, yo, he's just like, man, get up with your bitch ass. Like, he'll just straight up call somebody a bitch ass, or he'll just be like, he'll just talk shit to people. Like, it just slight things. It's just confidence coming through of a man on a mission. I love the fact that Sam Wilson's Captain America is a de-escalator. Every situation is so consistent from movie to movie. Every situation he goes into, he tries to de-escalate before doing anything. And the fact that he was a counselor and he worked with people at the VA with veterans and whatnot is this interesting thing that differentiates him from Steve, and it kind of leads into other things in the movie. But Sam Wilson as Captain America is great, and while I was talking shit about some of the action sequences, the aerial action sequence, the Hulk fight near the end, which is not a spoiler, I'm going to spoil that, it's in the end, the Hulk fight and the aerial dogfight was awesome. I don't know if they just saved up all the CG for those two fights, because everything before that was like, I don't know what this is. Those two fights were badass, which is the thing you're going to walk away remembering, at least for me, when you walk away thinking about the action. But Sam Wilson is great. Joaquin can be a little annoying sometimes, to be perfectly honest, but when he's playing off of Sam, he works. Carl Lumbly is back as Isaiah Bradley. He brings the emotional heft. But the breakaway star of the movie, breakaway star by far, well, not by far, but the breakaway star is Harrison Ford's Thunderbolt Ross. He plays Ross like a very tormented man. A man who wants to be different. And the way he plays him, there's always this, like, feeling that, like, he just wants to take out a gun and unload on the room of people. But he's like, no, I'm a better man than that. I'm a better man than that. And they keep on hitting the Betty Ross thing. The Betty Ross thing. I want to be a better man for Betty. I want to be a better man for Betty. And you believe it. Harrison Ford gives a great performance in this movie. You really believe him. And honestly, he's more of a co-lead than I was expecting. He's in a lot of this movie. I think Harrison Ford gets like maybe 30 minutes of screen time. Like, if Anthony Mackie, because the movie's about 2 hours and 58 minutes, and if Anthony Mackie has like 2 hours and 20, then Harrison Ford has the rest, dude. He's in this movie a lot. He has a whole fucking story, a whole thing. Well, but once again, the problem is so much of it hinges on if you've been following the Thunderbolt Ross story. And if you've actually watched, and like Incredible Hulk plays a big factor in this film. I won't spoil it, but the Incredible Hulk plays a big factor in this film. But there's a very timely cameo that was great. And in the end, what you're left with is a Marvel movie, and I thought this before just from listening to people. When I saw like Superwise's review, and I saw a couple other people's reactions, I was left thinking to myself, this is a Marvel movie that if it had came out in phases 2, it would have been like, no, don't get me wrong, people wouldn't have been glowing about it. It wouldn't have been like this fucking over-the-top thing, but it's right in the same ballpark, like in terms of what it is with probably Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like Ant-Man and the Wasp, not Ant-Man Quantumania, but like Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's probably in the same ballpark with like Doctor Strange. It's probably in the same ballpark with the middle of the pack MCU movie. Nowhere near the top, nowhere near the top 10. But like it is like in this interesting spot where it is not good enough. It's not good enough to stand out, truly stand out, which is a damn shame. But it's not this maligned movie that people are making it out to be. In fact, the entire time I was watching the movie, I said to myself, is this going to be Quantumania? Am I going to have the same reaction I had to Quantumania, or am I going to have the reaction I had to like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness and like Thor Love and Thunder, which was well, okay, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is the more equatable one, which was like, this movie isn't great. This movie isn't great. This movie isn't perfect. This is not the best of the MCU by far. But the characters work. The main characters work. There are some awesome action sequences. There's some awesome through lines. In fact, there's some awesome through lines. The problem with both, actually, equating those two movies are actually pretty good, a Multiverse of Madness and this, because so much of Multiverse of Madness hinged on how much you gave a shit about WandaVision, and if you watch WandaVision, same thing happened here. The movie has its issues, no way around it. But in the end, I had a great time. I still enjoy Sam Wilson. I hope this movie doesn't affect his position as Captain America, because I think he does such a great job. I would hate to see this movie, this middle of the pack MCU movie, drag him down, because he deserves to be Captain America. He gives such a great performance here. He has it in him. He commands the scenes when he's there. I would hate to see this happen to him. But this movie, Captain America: Brave New World, is a solid 7.5 out of 10. Nothing crazy. It ain't top of the line. It's not fucking Winter Soldier or Civil War or the original Iron Man or Guardians of the Galaxy. It's nowhere near that. But people's reaction have been a bit over-exaggerated. But anyways, thank you guys for watching the Comic Movie Show. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Goodbye.